Issue 78. We start out with King Acorn awarding Sonic knighthood for his heroism, as I wonder why he didn't do this the minute he was able to. We then see Sally standing next to the king wearing a pretty royal outfit, including a tiara thing I like, and they award Sonic with the Medal of Honor, with Sally seeming to kiss him so subtly that it's pointless. The king, for the sake of boosting morale to the public, has the genius idea of calling the hidden valley that they call home the Kingdom of Not Hope, to make them feel better about losing the Acorn Kingdom and by making a new beginning feeling. He also returns the Freedom Fighters to active service immediately, undoing his stupid mistake from earlier. Then we cut to Eggman unfortunately having recovered from Nicole's virus, thinking that he had to dump all of his old corrupted files, whatever exactly those entail, and start from scratch. He then presses a button, saying that there are millions of Robians who have to obey him. Millions? Including his Uncle Chuck. Sonic then looks depressed and tells his parents that it's hard having to pack up his uncle's belongings so that Nate can move in, as he misses him already. His parents comfort him as he looks sad, and then Elias asks the king why his mother is still asleep in the tube despite recovering from her injuries a long time ago. The king doesn't know the answer, but I do. It's because simply bringing her back alive and well with Elias would be too easy. So like with the king and his crystallization, we need to annoyingly postpone the goal being achieved. Nate says for the backpack with an emerald, that first he has to drop off what's left of the super emerald. Then narration says that if the royal family had remained in the med lab, they would have noticed a slight motion from the queen's hand that would have surprised them. Then we see outer space, with narration telling us that somewhere near the planetoid Sigma Canaro, two space vessels emerge from hyperspace. We then see Mina still angsting about her loved ones being roboticized to the point of wishing she had been roboticized because then at least she'd still be with her loved ones. But then she wouldn't have the free will and emotions to be able to appreciate it. Not to mention she'd be carrying out the orders of a villain, so skewed priorities there. I hope she gets over this instead of making herself willingly get roboticized. Rosie then approaches her and asks her to watch over some sad kids whose parents were taken by Eggman's hordes. Oh, it's not forever, it's just while she runs some errands. She's doing this because they need someone that they can relate to, and she's perfect for the job. She then shows herself to be good with children by telling them a story right away. I guess she could be a good babysitter. Antoine talks about his feelings about his father's situation with Bunny, which is a pointless recap that at least serves as a good girlfriend-boyfriend bonding moment for them. And Antoine then shows how far he's come with Sonic by saying he salutes him. Oh, that's sweet. Jeffrey shakes Sonic's hand, saying that he's earned his respect, admitting before this that he knew this would have to happen sooner or later. It turns out that the decision to have Jeffrey's elites and the Freedom Fighters work more closely together was at Elias's request. After Elias thinks some more about how he would rather be out adventuring, he hears Dr. Quack telling the king that while the queen's body is completely healed, she's developed somehow a dependency on the freezing temperature within the cryotube. So she would perish if she was removed from her confines, probably from a sort of re-thawing shock. Well, we can't exactly have the queen walking around in a cryosuit like Mr. Freeze, for a queen that looked pretty ridiculous. Then it's revealed that somehow, this equipment only has enough power for another week. Well, just send her back to Angel Island then, because Haven was able to keep her there for years. Then, as I have no idea what the green thing is in this panel, Eggman says that a simple biomechanical interface with his master computer's hard drive, a quick scan of all the files, and not only has he found what he needs to fight Sonic, but he's also located enough power to enslave all of Mobius. And the text blurb says that Sonic Adventure has arrived. I can't wait to see how original the comic spin on it will be. In the next story, we continue where we left off, where we see Jules getting roboticized to keep him from dying, and Jules says in the present day that maybe they would have been better off if people hadn't tried to save him, since it gave Robotnik a chance to sabotage the roboticizer and start roboticizing for the first time. Who knows, maybe he would have done it anyways, just later. It turns out Robotnik was worried that Uncle Chuck would sabotage his plans if the contraption was able to work the way it was intended. I don't get the connection there. What about it working would allow Uncle Chuck to do that? It's also, well, if he doesn't have free will, but he is a robot, but it's not Uncle Chuck who's going to be roboticized at this point, it's Jules. It's also explained that they didn't have the time to test the device out just in case. Although, what could they safely test it on? They'd probably be opposed to testing on an animal. I really don't like this panel being all green, because it makes it look like Robotnik's former overlord is fighting King Acorn with no clothes, with just a belt. Robotnik had decided to tell the king to stupidly risk his life for that fight, because his plan was that one of them would die and either way he'd seize the throne. But he didn't count on King Acorn sparing him. Then we see Bernie telling Chuck that Jules' condition might be only temporary until he find a solution. That's a good point. Chuck should have at least tried to look into Jules' programming and see if he could restore his mind back to normal. But I guess he found the idea of messing around with his brother's mind icky, and at this point he didn't trust himself to do anything, packing up his belongings and calling himself a fraud and not a real genius, even though he wouldn't be able to make that roboticizer if he wasn't a genius in the first place. So how could he ever doubt that? That's like Sonic doubting that he's blue. The first story, by Carl Bullers, was about downtime, with most of it being pointless except in the context of it having a lot of good character moments. Like Sonic being crowned a knight to show that the king respects him, Sonic missing his uncle, Antoine missing his father, and Nate dropping off a super emerald near the queen, which come to think of it might actually explain her hand moving in the cryogenic chamber. Why didn't they try this a lot earlier? But yeah, Rosie gives Mia some kids to babysit to help fill a void in her life because she knows Angsing, which is a good character moment for both of them, and Jeffrey and Sonic finally learn to like each other. The second story, by Ken Penders, was elaborating more on the backstory of Sonic's father being roboticized, although feels pretty pointless. The only new information was the king engaging in a duel, which felt pointless and made him look like an idiot for even agreeing to it, and it being confirmed that the roboticizer didn't have time to be tested properly because of desperation and rushing, and Chuck ended up moving out of the house. Why was he living with his brother anyways? Couldn't he live somewhere else? That was perfectly fine with Jules' wife? They must have all really liked each other.